Welcome back, guys. In this section, we'll learn how to translate Excel formulas into VBA code and execute them as macros. You might wonder why we bother with this approach instead of directly writing in VBA. The reason is straightforward. When formulas are written in VBA, the macros need to be rerun every time a value changes, which isn't always efficient. Additionally, macros written this way only return results, making it impossible to visualize the underlying formulas on the worksheet. Imagine you're developing a macro automation tool where you want to see results update in real time as value in your dataset change. This dynamic display isn't achievable with macros written solely in VBA. That's why we use literal strings in VBA to parse Excel formulas. It enables us to maintain the flexibility of formulas while harnessing the power of VBA for automation. Without further ado, let's dive into some practical examples. So I have a workbook with a single worksheet in it, okay? And I have 3 sets of data, right? On the first set, I have a simple fruits versus quantity, okay? And what this data set is actually doing, right, is that we are interested to obtain the corresponding quantity associated to apples, right? So I'm using a simple VLOOKUP formula that I've written in Excel, and we're going to parse these into VBA, okay? Likewise, on the second data set, I have a list of products and their corresponding revenue. And I've used the simple subtotal formula to obtain the subtotal results, okay? So if I were to have a filter, so I've inserted a filter. So if I have product B, selected, if I just product B, you can see the value is changing, right? So I'm just going to clear the filter, and that's about it. That's what exactly we are accomplishing using the subtotal formula. And on the third data set, I have a list of numbers, and what I'm doing here is I'm obtaining the number of entries in the data set that have the value greater than 12. So in this case, we have 3 numbers that are greater than 12, right? Sounds about right. So that's why it's returning is 3. Okay, so I've written a simple countif formula. Now what we're going to do is we're going to parse all of these formulas with literal strings into VBA. Okay, and then we are going to parse it by combining it with algo. Okay, so this is what we first parse it as literal strings without accounting for the last row, and then parse it as literal strings by combining it with algo. Okay, so I know that you are a little bit lost here, right? So no worries. Let's get our hands dirty and explore this principle in depth. Okay, so before I even start, okay, remember in the previous lecture on Excel and VBA function, right? So we're on sheet 1, right? And the results are being returned on D17. Okay, so on D18. So I'll just have D19, right? I'll just have D19 because I want to illustrate something that I've done earlier, all right? Okay, so I have a simple VLOOKUP formula, and I'm just going to copy paste it, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring back the VBA editor. Okay, right? I'm going to bring back the VBA editor, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paste this formula. Right? And remember, I told you that we can do something like this, right? We can do something like this using the vol function, right? The vol function, the square bracket, right? You could just copy it literally and then close it in a square bracket, right? So if we do that, if I run this previous procedure now, on D19, right? I'd expect to see the results on D19. If I were to run this, members already exist in an object module for which this, okay, okay. So we have to insert a module, okay? We have to insert a module. Now we are writing it on the sheet event, right? That shouldn't be happening, okay? So I'm going to close it, right? I only have one workbook open. Okay, I'm going to confirm that. And now if I run it, Okay, it's returning me the results 25. And if you have been sharp enough, you'd have noticed that it's just returning me the results without the formulas in it. Okay? So now, if I were to make any change, for example, if I were to change the value of apples to 30, I would see that the formula section where I've written the code on the Excel formula, its value is being updated, right? But it's not being updated here, right? So I have to run a macro, right? I have to rerun the macro and see the value get updated in real time, okay? So this can be inconvenient. So this is why I would say we would have to parse. The first reason why we would have to parse Excel formulas with literal strings, okay? So the problem with this is, number one, okay, I'm just going to write this down because I'm sharing this workbook. So you can take some time, but you have to get these facts right, okay? The formulas, okay, are not written in the worksheet, okay? This is the first problem. The second problem, if we change any of the values in the worksheet, in the VLOOKUP table, we would have to rerun the macro, right? So if we make a small change, we are not going to be able to see the values reflected in real time. We'll have to rerun the macro, all right? And number three, we have the third reason as well, okay? Number three is if we add any entry, all right? If we add any entry, it means we add another entry to the VLOOKUP table, right? In the case of a VLOOKUP, it wouldn't really matter because we are still referencing Apple, right? But in the case of a subtotal, that it would matter, right? So, I'm just gonna put number three anyway. If we add any entry to the VLOOKUP table, we would any entry to the table, right? I'm not gonna say VLOOKUP table in general. We would have to come back and re-alter the code range. Okay? So this is why we parse with literal strings. Okay? So keep that in mind. Right? So there's three reasons why we would have to parse Excel formulas in VBA with literal strings. So you could tell me, well, instead of using this convention, I could just use the Excel worksheet.function.VLOOKUP and then just have it combined with the LROW, and that would solve the third problem, right? That would solve the third problem, but we wouldn't be able to solve the first and the second problem, okay? So this is why we parse Excel formulas with literal strings, okay? So now let's parse Excel formulas with literal strings, okay? Now we're just going to do VLOOKUP, right? Without the LROW, without parsing with the LROW, okay? So now this will solve problem one. What was problem one? The formulas are not written in the worksheet. But the moment we sheet one, I'm just going to park it right below D19. So this value is going to be returned in D19. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say equals and open it, double inverted comma, right? And then I'm just going to take this formula, copy it, right? Equals, right? So I'm going to have this equal right here, okay? Remember that? Okay, so I have this equal, and then I'm opening a double inverted comma, and then I'm having the equal sign, and then I'm pasting the formula, right? I'm pasting the formula, and then I'm just closing it with a double inverted comma. So this is how I would parse Excel formula. So you see it's giving me an error because I have another double inverted comma, apples, all right? So I did it intentionally to let you know that whenever you have a double inverted comma in the formula expression, okay, what you have to do is you have to enclose them with another double inverted comma. That's what I'm doing it here. Okay, so that is something that you have to keep in mind. Now, if I run this formula, it's returning me the results in D20, okay, as 30. So now you can see I've parsed the formula. Okay. So now, what if we want to improve it even further? Okay, suppose in the case of a VLOOKUP, it wouldn't matter if we add a table, if we add any entry. because we are just finding the VLOOKUP results for Apple, right? So, but in the case of the subtotal, right, if we add an entry, right, if the range is changing, the results would also change, right? So anyhow, I will show you how to parse it with last range. So this is why we use last range, okay? Okay, VLOOKUP L row, okay? It's basically the last row of the range, right? So this will solve problem 1 and 2 as well, right? So if we change any values in the worksheet, right, we wouldn't have to rerun the macro, okay? So you have seen that, okay? So now this method, this will solve problem 3, okay? So we're gonna see that with a live example in the upcoming session on subtotal, right? But I'm just showing it to you here anyway, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna dim RNG as range, okay? And then I'm gonna set RNG because it's an object, and I'm just gonna say sheet 1 dot range. Okay, I'm gonna use the current region, okay, because we have a lot of tables on the same row, right? So we can't use the A and dot count and shift all the way back up because it's gonna return as the last row, which is 48 here, and that's not right, okay? So that's why we use the current region method, okay? And I've already gone through this, all right, how to find the last row in the current region. So the region I'm interested is on A14, okay? This region right here, A14, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dot current region, and then I'm going to dim L row as just long. How are we going to find the L row of the current region? We have gone through that, right, in the lecture of active sheet used range versus current region. So if you're not sure, please go back to the lecture and refer to them, okay, where I've explained in depth, right? So I'm not going to explain this section, but this is generally how we do it. Range dot count. I'm just going to say dot row, okay? So we have the last row of the current region of this table basically, right? Now I want to parse it, okay? Now I want to parse the formula. Parse with the L row, okay? And how am I going to do it? I'm going to take sheet 1 dot, right? I'm just going to copy this back, or I'm going to copy this back, and I'm going to paste it right here, okay? We don't have to do anything new here, right? D21. Okay, what I'm doing here is I'm changing the last row, okay? So 17, B17 is no longer 17, right? 17, if you add another entry, then it's no longer 17. So what I'm going to do is right where I'm going to change the value of 17, I'm just going to add another inverted comma, and I'm going to say and, right? And then I'm going to concatenate it with and L row, okay? I'm going to do it that way, and then I'm going to say and, right? And then I'm just going to open a double inverted comma to close it, to close the statement, right? So basically what I've done is, this is the first section, okay? And then I'm concatenating it with the second section here, and then I'm concatenating it with the third section here. So this one I have 2 double inverted commas here, and then I have 2 double inverted commas here. So now it's dynamic, which means that the L row changes, the formula would account for the last row. Okay, so if I run this, it's not going to matter because it's a VLOOKUP anyway, but I'm returning the value on D21. So you could see that, well, we have parsed it with L row, we have parsed it without L row, and this was just the old method of using the val function. Okay, so we've gone through practice problem 1. Now let's go through practice problem 2, whereby I'm not going to use the val method anymore, right? This was just a demonstration of what we've done previously and to highlight the setback of using this method, right? So now I'm going to go to sub of the subtotal, right? The subtotal. So I'm just going to call this total, right? So I'm going to say this method, this will solve problem 1 and problem 2. Okay, what I meant by solving problem 1 and problem 2 is, okay, I have the subtotal, and then I'm just going to, okay, the value, I have the formula written on D36, so I'm just going to have it on D37, okay? So I'm just going to have it on D37, right? So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm just going to copy this, okay? because we're parsing it, so we can just copy this expression. Okay, so parsing it is very simple. Okay, very, very simple. Okay, something that you should get a hang of it pretty fast. The only part that I've noticed confusion among my students were when you are trying to combine it with the algo, right? That's why you have to be careful, right, when you're combining it with the algo. Okay, so D37, sheet 1, D37, right? So I just want to make sure that yes, D37 is the range that we are interested in. Okay, and then I'm just going to have open a double inverted comma, equal, and then I'm just going to copy this section right there. I'm going to copy this section, right, and I'm just going to paste it right here. Okay, so that is pretty much what we've done. Okay, now if I run this, expected end sub, right, sub as total. All right, we haven't closed this end sub, right? I don't know what happened. We did not close it. Oh, maybe it got deleted. I don't know. Right, so if I just reset it and then I run this as total. So this is run. Now, you see, it's giving me the results of 526. Okay, and it's been parsed with the formulas. It's been parsed with the formula. But the only problem is that if I add another entry, I'm just gonna drag it down. Okay, if I add another entry and then I run the as total, okay, we're not seeing any change. The values being reflected. Okay, when the last row has been changed. Okay, so this is why we want to use. Okay, so it's not changing here either. Okay, it's not changing here either. So this is why we might want to use the algo, right? Okay, the algo is incredibly powerful. That it's probably even more powerful than the formula that's written on the Excel worksheet. Okay, so let's test it out with the algo. Okay, sub as total L row. Okay, so I'm just gonna park it on D38. So I'm just gonna copy this. I'm just gonna paste it here for now. Okay, and then I'm gonna return the results on D38. Okay, and then I also have to get the current region. Okay, the current region, we're just gonna copy it. We're just gonna change the range, the reference, right? The reference is going to be just A24, I suppose, right? So, or A25, doesn't matter, right? As long, just going to put A25, doesn't matter, okay? So, now, I'm going to combine it with the algo. So, I have the algo, okay? The algo defined. Now, which section am I changing? Okay, I am changing, concatenate with the L row, and then this could just go away. Right? We don't need the number 35 anymore, right? And then I'm just going to close this. So basically, the first section here, and then I'm concatenating it with the L row, right? And then I am having this section to close the whatever that's remaining from that equation, okay? And I'm returning the value on D38, okay? So now if I run the macro, okay, on the surface, it seems the same. But now, if I add another product, okay, and I run the macro of S total, okay, the one without the L row, the value is not being changed, right? The value is not being changed. But if I run the value with the L row, see here, the value has been changed, okay? So that's exactly what I meant, right? When you combine it with the L row, right, it's so dynamic to the extent that, you know, it even beats the formula that's written on the worksheet at times, right? So if I run the S total L row again, you see, it's reflecting the value in real time, okay? And if I run S total, nothing, right? We have nothing, okay? So what if we clear these two? If I clear the contents, well, the value just gets updated, right? The value just gets updated, right? So That's what you have to understand about the algo, right? It's incredibly dynamic. Okay, so we're going to go through the third example, right? We're going to use the sub for the count if data set, right? So sub count if. Okay, so before I move on, I'm just going to say these will solve problem 3. Okay, now I'll say that we're not using the algo, so this will solve problem 1. I should say problem 3 as well to indicate that it solved all the problem, right? It has solved all the problem, okay, as well, to indicate that not just 3 but 1 and 2 as well. Okay, this will solve problem 1 and 2, right? So we're going to parse with a literal string, okay, and it's a very simple thing that we're going to do. So I have the formula returned on C48, so I'm going to return it to C49. So I'm just going to copy this, and then I'm going to just paste it here. Okay, I'm just going to paste it here, and I'm just going to annotate this a comment, right? So it doesn't result in any unwanted errors. And we're returning it to where was it? C49, right? So C49. So we can just copy this. Right, I don't want to type them out again. I want to save some time, right? C49, so that I don't bore you too much, okay? And then I'm just going to parse it with we have the equal sign, right? Remember the equal sign. Right, so are we right? Well, no, right? We have a double inverted comma. That's exactly what I want to point out, right? So anytime you have the double inverted comma in part of the expression, you're going to close it with the double inverted comma as well, right? So you're going to close it with the double inverted comma on the beginning and on the end. Okay, so now if I run this sheet on C49, I would see the results being returned. Okay, but it's not dynamic, it's not accounting for last row. Okay, so that's why we want to solve problem 3 as well, right? We want to solve problem 3 as well. So I'm going to say sub count if L row. Okay, what am I going to do is I'm going to return the results on, well, first of all, let's just define the L row and the range. Okay, so the range is just going to be range A40 or A39, doesn't matter, as long as it's part of the continuous range here, right? So I can just take A40 or A39, so I'll just take 40 anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay, dot current region, and then we have the last row. Okay, then my next ordeal is where I'm going to return the results. I'm going to return the results in sheet C50, right? Sheet C50. So I'm just going to copy this actually. I'm just going to copy this, right? And then do the modification as necessary. Right? So because I have been doing it, I've been using VBA for a long time, so I know what exactly needs to be done, and what exactly needs to be changed. So I hope that by you guys will be able to do that as well, right? So AS, what am I changing? Okay, is N, right? So I don't want the 48, I want the concatenating it with the L row, right? And then N, right? The N expression. Basically, what I'm going to do is, well, this expression has been closed, so I have to add another double inverted comma, right? So basically, this is the first part of the string, the second part of the string, and then this is the third part of the string. And remember this 12, right? The reason why we have a double inverted comma is because the double inverted comma is part of the expression. That's why we have it wrapped around. Okay, so now that sounds pretty much done. And if I run the macro, count A for last row, I'm getting 3. But the difference between the second and the third is that now if I add another value, 14 for example, is greater than 12. So if I run this one, the one without the L row, the value is not changed. So if I run this one, the value has been changed, right? So if I delete it, the value has been changed as well dynamically. Okay, So that's about it for parsing Excel formulas with literal strings and concatenating them with the algo. Okay, so I hope you've understood how to approach and how to parse them effectively. And in the next section, we will be going through uh, the more challenging part of VBA, right? Basically, we'll be going into active X control and user forms, all right? And we still have a few topics to go, right? Before we end up this playlist, right? So till then, take care, guys.